Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. This was the Dvar Torah that I gave on Shabbat Re'eh for our Shabbat Chabura on Shabbat Re'eh this past weekend. Pasuk 26. Re'eh, behold, I set before you a blessing and a curse. Re'eh anochi noten lifneichem hayom baracha uklala. Shortly thereafter, God says, Pasuk 31, for ye are to pass on over the Jordan, to go into and possess the land which the Lord your God giveth you, and you shall possess it and dwell therein. Atem ovrim et hayardein lavo loreshet et haaretz asher Adonai Elohechem notein lachem v'rishtem ota yishavtem ba. Then out of the clear blue, a reality check. August 2020, we have the Abraham Accord. In an historic announcement, few ever thought they would see in their lifetime, a Middle East peace deal has been reached. Taking to Twitter today to publicize the news, President Trump announced, huge breakthrough today, historic peace agreement between our two great friends, Israel and the United Arab Emirates. The action will be known as the Abraham Accord, named for the father of all three great faiths. A joint statement was released between President Trump, Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu, and Crown Prince of Abu Dhabi and Deputy Supreme Commander of the United Arab Emirates, Sheikh Mohammed bin Zayed. The statement read that after the three leaders spoke, they agreed to full normalization of relations between Israel and the United Arab Emirates, and that the president's vision for peace would focus on its efforts now to expanding ties with other countries in the Arab and Muslim world. Bear with me now. An Italian word, sfumato, is a painting technique for softening the transition between colors, mimicking an area beyond what the human eye is focusing on, or the out of focus plane. Leonardo da Vinci was the most prominent practitioner of sfumato, based on his research in optics and human vision and his experimentations with the camera obscura. He used it in many works, including his famous painting of the Mona Lisa, and he describes sfumato as, quote, without lines or borders, in the manner of smoke or beyond the focus plane, end quote. According to the theory of art historians, sfumato is one of the four modes of painting colors available to Italian Renaissance painters. Again, I ask you to bear with me for a moment when I explain what a human has by way of recognition of what he sees at any particular moment. Let's expand that sensory perception to that of seeing and hearing. We are at the crossroads of a paradigm shift in American socio-economic development in 2020. There's no doubt. When we see politicians on television, we see someone whose ideas over the past two terms of a presidency that have changed immeasurably. Almost like a sfumato that I explained before. There seems to be no lines. When one moment we see them as being prophetic and believing in the things that should be done for the human condition in an affirmative way. On the other side of the scope of human recognition, we see a complete reversal of mores and beliefs in the truth. 1 minute the politician is for borders, and the next minute they are for no borders. In one moment in a debate, their opponent is a racist, and today they are embracing the very opponent of yesterday. Those are, unfortunately, the examples we have. One can have a good record of being supportive of the State of Israel and welcoming a peace accord with the United Arab Emirates, and in another time and place, they appear to condemn the State of Israel with BDS and sanctions against Israel. In universities especially, in the United States, students and professors who openly display support for the State of Israel are castigated and vilified, and those who come to campus are shouted down and denounced. Now, let's get back to understanding sfumato. One can understand that we see the blurring of lines. 1 minute, anti-Semites masquerading with tolerance, and then the next minute we have BLMs and Antifas who are really out to destroy any semblance of respect for Israel or Israel-Jewish relations or Semitic activity in general. At this particular point in time, if we approach our thinking about our history and where we come from in recent history, not just biblical history, but modern history, we must ask ourselves the following. Who are our friends? Truly, they can be found in the Republican ranks or in the Democratic ranks, the independent ranks or in the libertarian ranks. It is for us, we Americans, who are now about to embrace one candidate or the other, to know exactly what that individual stands for. That there is no sfumato and the blurring of the lines. The sfumato might very well work on the Mona Lisa by expressing Leonardo da Vinci's dexterity in painting, but the sfumato is not desirable when we have to know where those lines are. Those lines must be succinct. Blue and black will give you an ink-like color. Red and black will give you a ruby-like color, good enough to adorn a velvet mantle on a synagogue bima. Black and white and the colors in between will give you a gray, a neutral color to prime your painting. Stop and hear and see, ra'ay, and listen to the candidates. They must be devoid of these mixtures. A sfumato will traverse the conversational abyss, but deprive and deceive those who are truly looking for the separation between falsehoods and the truth, light and dark, ben choshech le'or. When someone like President Trump announces that there is a peace accord, we can double check with the Israelis and the United Arab Emirates the veracity of the announcement. But when police are branded with falsities and slander and are attacked on a daily basis while trying to protect the public at large, the sfumato is blurring the line and it's not telling the truth. Yes, asking something that we understand, especially at this time, a time in our history that was replete with Nazi and anti-Semitism and hatred and terrible acts of violence and murder against Jews in Germany. Is like saying today is like yesterday, which is a lie. If we do not allow the sfumato to invade our thoughts and our thinking and what we see, yesterday will not rear its ugly head. We will be in command of our destiny. If we truly seek the truth, if we look beyond the patronizing words of silver-tongued politicians and corrupt media pundits, we will come out of this time whole. And knowing what the future bodes for us. The Abraham Accord, which President Trump announced on Thursday morning, August 13th, 2020, can be a reality, as it says in Isaiah, Yeshayahu, this very Shabbat Re'eh. Habitu el Avraham avichem, v'el Sarah t'cholelechem, ki echad harativ v'avarachehu v'arbehu. Look back to Abraham, your father, and to Sarah, who brought you forth. For he was only one when I called him. But I blessed him and made him many. Again, regarding the Abraham Accord. Ein goy lo teda tikra v'goy lo yida'ucha elecha yorutzu lema'an Adonai Elohecha v'likdosh Yisrael ki fe'aroch. So you shall summon a nation you did not know. And a nation that did not know you shall come running to you for the sake of the Lord your God, the Holy One of Israel, who has glorified you. And finally, the man of the hour, Yeshayahu, Isaiah. I remember in grade school in yeshiva and Rabbi Yaakov Yosef, we were bused from the Lower East Side to 42nd Street and the East River Drive, right near Knickerbocker Village. We were given a tour of the United Nations, the General Assembly, Security Council, and the magnificent lobbies which abound in that beautiful modern edifice. Then we were taken to the wall just across the street and below Knickerbocker Square, where it is chiseled on the wall, the most renowned quote, probably in, or of all prophetic quotes. It says, Lo yisa goy el goy cherev, v'lo yilmadu od milchama. And they shall beat their swords into plowshares, and their spears into pruning hooks. Nation shall not lift sword up against nation, neither shall they know war anymore. And finally, let's take a look at the situation from an astrological point of view. Astrology was practiced by Jews throughout the Middle Ages, both as a professional art and as a science. Coming from the East, Jews were sometimes looked upon as heirs and successors of this art form of the Chaldeans. For this reason, Jews sometimes were regarded by the Western world as masters of astrology, their supposed power over destiny. Abraham ibn Ezra was a follower of astrology, which he calls a sublime science. He authored a book on the astrological eclipse of the moon from the Arabic into the Hebrew. Hence, we have the Islamic crescent and star symbol. As I walked with Lady Lou, that's my little beagle, at 3:37 a.m. Friday morning, Erev Shabbos, I inadvertently looked up, and there, in the east, all by itself, was the crescent moon, and just beneath its cradle was Venus, the morning star, the symbol of Islam. We are reminded of the Crusaders depriving the Jews of the Temple Mount in Jerusalem. Saladin, who was of Kurdish descent from Armenia, had Maimonides, Rambam, as his personal physician. During this time, Jews were allowed to pray on the Temple Mount along with Muslims. We are also reminded that during the Caesars like Constantine and Hadrian, Jews were forbidden to perform sacrifices on the Temple Mount. It was monarchs like Saladin who allowed for the integration of Jews and Muslims. So after 1,000 years of misinterpretation and corruption of history, we have to look with new eyeballs at what is unfolding without a sfumato. There are those in the secular world and amongst the Palestinians that would like this agreement, the Abraham Accord, to fail. But if we look, as we are commanded to do in this week's Parsha, behold, Ra'eh, look directly at the moon and at its companion, Venus, the morning star. There is a glimmer of hope in the distance. Shabbat Shalom, Shavua Tov.